Okay, in this video, I'm going to review a student sample with you for the annotated bibliography. I did go in and mark out the student's name, and this does have an MLA header. Previously, I have allowed some classes just to do an MLA header, and now I'm moving more towards just having the APA cover page with the annotated bibliographies, just to give students practice before that it's required fully and graded fully in future assignments. So even though this sample has the MLA header, I prefer that you include the APA cover page so that you're accustomed to it, and also so that I can give you some feedback on it before it's counting at a higher point value on future assignments. So I just wanted to note that. On your cover page and on the first page of your annotated bibliography, after the cover page, you do need to have a title. And one thing I want to point out about this particular student sample is this is not in bold, but it should be in bold. So this was something that the student did lose a point for, probably just a point, but with APA 7th edition, they do require the titles to be in bold. So note that I want you to have the two words annotated bibliography here, and then a colon, and then I want you to have a more specific subtitle to show the direction of your research. So here, this student is indicating that she has researched street medicine as an alternative to help patients who may be they may be without insurance, they may be homeless, underserved populations. I thought this was an excellent topic. This particular student wanted to go to medical school and become a doctor, and she sort of stumbled on this topic about street medicine and how doctors are offering free medical services and sort of bringing the medical services to the streets rather than expecting people to be able to find clinics and things like that. So it was a great topic. The student did a lot of good work over the semester with it, and you may see her samples in future assignments as well. So to start with, notice that the whole document is double-spaced. Don't add any additional spaces. And the other thing was I did include some notes that I gave the student. This was a very polished draft, and she got a very good grade. This is an A paper, but I did include some notes that I had given her, just so that might help you as well. So as we've talked about, the claim statement is, this is your first attempt at showing me the claim statement. So I don't grade it harshly, but I do give you feedback on it. So in this case, I had told the student that she might want to rephrase this term. I think as we both got to understand her research better, I think as she continued, we sort of stuck with street medicine because that was a term that was being used a lot in the research. I am not always going to be an expert, nor are you, on these topics. So as you move through the research and as you develop it further, we both become more familiar with the things that you're writing about. So sometimes I'll make a comment like this just as a communication tool. It doesn't mean that the student did anything wrong. Here you may see some checks. That's just me telling the student, hey, you did a great job with this. So the citations are in APA 7th edition. One thing to remember is with APA 7th edition and with all APA before that, you only capitalize the first letter of the title. And if there would be like a colon or something after, within the title, like here with the annotated bibliography colon, if that was the published title, you would capitalize the first letter after the colon, and then everything else would be lowercase. The only exception would be proper names, proper nouns in the title. So notice how this title is lowercase. In most cases with APA 7th edition, the publication, which does have to be included, is in italics. So these are some things that you can notice here with the student. Okay, also notice that the citation has the hanging indent, and that's the formatting that you'll have to use as well. This particular student chose to indent the paragraph. That is not required. A lot of students just use the block formatting for the paragraph. You could also bring the margin out to align with the first word of the first name, in this case, of the citation. The only thing I ask, because there's not just one rule about it, this kind of formatting can vary in different documents. I just want it to be consistent. So if you indent one paragraph, I want you to indent all paragraphs. If you do block formatting, then I want you to do all block formatting. So just make sure everything's consistent. So right off the bat, notice that the student has identified the type of source. Awesome. That's a good job. Then the student identified the author's full name. Please refrain from doing Mr. and Ms. or Mrs., like to show like someone's married. In academic writing, you try to avoid gender-specific types of titles that deal with more personal matters like being married. In this case, because Liz Fry is a PhD or a medical doctor, possibly, the student included that title, and that would be proper for academics. Notice with the APA, you only use the first initial of the author's name. So here is a great chance to use the full name. Never, ever, ever, never refer to an individual by first name. You could know the person personally. You could be that person's family member. But if you're writing about them in academic context, you have to use either their full name or just their last name. And it's very common just to use the last name. So you could identify, like maybe later in the paragraph, you could identify this author as just Fry. So this student also identified Dr. Fry's title, and then gave the main idea for the article. Then the student here, and I'm just sort of going to highlight a little bit of this. Around here, this is the analysis, the evaluation of the information in the source. So the student writes, the PowerPoint covers the 3 stages of street medicine, being the approach, the administration, and the outreach, and how to successfully administer them. The purpose of the article is to give insight on the background of street medicine and the steps taken to successfully treat a patient. So notice how the summary is a couple of sentences, and then the analysis and evaluation has a couple of sentences. So 2 to 3 sentences for the summary, 2 to 3 sentences for the analysis. Then finally, we get down here, and I'm going to just use the pen. This part is your synthesis part. That's the last, that's sort of the way you tag your annotation paragraph. So the last sentence reads, this supports the claim as it gives insight on how to administer street medicine and using the philosophies of building relationships with patients as a guide. So there really is no perfect with writing, because we can always revise and make things better, but this is a pretty solid, close to perfect annotation here. We have a very clear summary and very key elements to what the source was. Then we have some good analysis and evaluation of what's included in the source information. And then we, at the end, have the synthesis statement that you need to mention the claim and you need to tie the source to the claim. Whether you're saying this would be used to prove the claim or not, you have to incorporate information about the claim to show its worth in relation to the claim. Okay, so I'm going to go over one more with you. I'm going to get a pen and go down. So here's the next one, and this is multiple authors, so there are rules for using multiple authors in a citation. Make sure you're reviewing that in the Little Seagull or some of the links I've provided for 7th edition. And then notice how the title of the article is in lowercase except for the first letter of the title. And here HIV is considered a proper noun because it's a title of a disease. And so then the rest is lowercase. And then the journal title is in italics. This is a good well done citation, but one of the things I want to mention is if you're using a citation generator, when you do scholarly research, you can click on the citation to cite, and the computer will do all the work for you. Or some of you may, I wouldn't suggest this, but some of you may use I can't even remember what it's called now because I don't use it, but there are a couple of them like EasyBib that I would not use those. Those are very commercial type citation generators, and they're usually not correct. Even the citation generators that are associated with the databases with the library have errors. So it is your responsibility as the student getting the grade to double check your sources and to make sure that they are correct. Because all of these citation generators are artificial intelligence, and they're just sort of grabbing things to put together based on a formula of some sort, and they may not convert certain information to the proper APA formatting. So let's just go over this really quickly. I did give a couple of points here. Here she identifies this as a journal article. And then because there were a couple of authors, she just sort of simplified the phrasing to Kilbourne and their fellow authors. Notice how the student used their as a generic pronoun. With the recent APA 7th edition, they do suggest that if you're referring to an unknown gender, it's not been identified yet, it's best to use they and their. I will say my grammar heart, I don't really like a singular being with a plural, but in this case, it is a group of authors, so there is plural. But Kilbourne is a singular, so grammar-wise it can get a little tricky, but to make sure, if you're not sure the pronouns that someone prefers, APA does accept and suggest that you use the they, their pronouns if you're just not sure. These days people usually are identifying their preferred pronouns, and so if you know, it's fine to use the ones that they prefer. The student identifies the credentials of the author because I guess they were known in the article. Here I did make a note that HIV is an abbreviation. Any abbreviation you use should be spelled out first, and then you put the abbreviation in parentheses, and then after that you can use the abbreviation only, but you do have to establish it first. So that was the note that I gave the student. This student did an excellent job with the evaluation and analysis. The student included some statistics from the article and sort of evaluated the contents of the article. Then when we get down here, there was a typo, so I did mark that. But this student here did a pretty thorough claim synthesis. You do not have to do as much as the student did, but she did a great job, and so there were no points taken off or anything, but I think she had maybe 2 or 3 sentences for the synthesis part of the annotation, and I usually just say 1 or 2 sentences, but she was very thorough with it, and that's perfectly fine. So this is in Blackboard, and you can go through and review it. But a couple of things I just wanted to point out is double space everything. Do not add extra spaces. Sometimes when you go like here from the claim to the first citation, you're going to sort of have this inclination to separate them, and you're going to want to put extra spaces. Don't do that. It can only be double spaced. Don't put any extra spaces between the title and the beginning of the document. Alphabetize your citations. Be consistent with how you present the paragraphs. And look through the document because you'll see some patterns that you can follow yourself. And you'll see sort of how this student produced this document, and she did very, very well. And like I said, I did include some of my own, some of the notes that I gave the student, which, as you can see, I didn't give a lot because it was very polished. Once you go through this, if you have any specific questions about your research or how you could incorporate information into your annotations, or if you have any questions about requirements for formatting after you've read the assignment sheet, let me know and I'll be glad to answer those.